Morning everyone. I'm just coming on because I saw a video the other day. This is actually the second time I'm recording this. I did do it yesterday morning, but for some reason the sound was really poor, so I apologise for that if anyone tried to watch it. But I had watched a video from Anne-Marie Collins, who's Annie XHX on YouTube, and she was talking about her depression and how she was struggling a wee bit at the moment. And I just wanted to come on and kind of tell my story. There has been videos that I have touched on my depression, but I don't think I've ever... There's a few that I have spoken to through Facebook or private message or emails, and they do know where mine stems from. But I just want to put my story out there and basically give folk hope that, for me, I don't believe there is ever a cure for depression. But I think it's manageable when you do get a bad spell. I believe once you've had it the first time, you get through it a lot easier. The first time you are in a dark spell, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you feel as if it's never going to come. Once you've been through it once, the next time it happens, you've got the hope. You know there is light there. It's just a matter of when it comes. So it is a lot easier to cope with it. That's how I try and word it. If I'm going through a bad spell, I'll be like, I'm just waiting in the light, because I know it's there. I know I'm going to get past that stage, but it's just a matter of when. But anyway, my depression, after having seen psychologists, psychiatrists, psychotherapists, occupational therapists, you name it, I've seen it, counsellors, and looking over everything that's happened, the one that they can pinpoint it back to is when my gran passed away when I was 8. I was a very mature child. I was the eldest of my mum's kids. There was myself, my sister who was 3.5 years younger than me, and my brother who was 8 years younger than me. So there was kind of like a 4-year gap between each of us. Basically one went into school and she had another one. But being the eldest, my mum and dad still worked full time, so my gran raised me really. For the first 2 years of my life, we actually lived with my gran as a family unit, and then we got our own home. But I always spent a lot of time with my gran. She done the school runs, the nursery runs. At the weekend I would stay over, things like that. And when I was 7, my gran remarried. My real grandpa had passed away when my mum was 16. So when she remarried, Adam was lovely. He was really, really good to us. And whenever I stayed over, Adam slept on the couch, for the simple reason, as my gran said, she was here before you. Looking back, that probably wasn't the right thing for her to do. I was a child, that was his bed. But that was how she was. And when we went on holiday or whatever, that was the same. We would get a family room and Adam would be in the single bed. When she passed away, it was a chat on the door in the middle of the night, because we didn't have a phone back then. It was 1985, and my bedroom was next to the front door, and I could hear the police speaking to my mum, and basically they told her that my gran had passed away. She was in hospital for tests in her heart. Her heart was really poorly, and when I got up, because obviously I heard all the voices, I went into the living room, and my mum, my dad, 2 police officers, Adam, and my mum's brother was there. And my dad basically hurried me back to bed and said, "It's fine, just go to your bed, it's fine." Next morning, myself, my sister got up. My brother was only a year old at the time, and over breakfast we were told that my gran had passed away, and we were going to stay with my dad's sister for a wee while. So for about a week we were shipped over to Mount Elizabeth. That was just a done thing back then. Kids weren't really involved with funerals, or we were kind of shelled from the... Sorry, I was just checking my message. We were kind of shelled and shielded from the grief, so they thought. And when we came back, everything was done. The funeral had passed, and it was just back to normal. But nothing was normal. So because that grief was never channeled, it was just bottled up. I never really had an outlet for it. Teenage years were fine. I started working in a chip shop when I was 12, just in the afternoons. Saturday afternoon from about 1 o'clock to 4:30 or something, and then when I was about 13 it went up, and I ended up working about 30 hours a week at night. Well, the evening, sorry. School, I always felt I was older than I was. Folk would want to go out at the weekend and, "Oh, we're going to get mad with it. We're getting a bottle of cider," and I'd be like, "No thanks." It was never my thing. Sitting out in a park drinking, no. And the same with the drug scene, it just didn't entertain me. It just wasn't for me. I did have a lot of friends that done it, but over time they knew it wasn't for me, and they never ever issued it. So when I was 19, I met Ian, and it was divine intervention. No other wording for it. Christmas Eve, me and my best mate went out to our usual nightclub. We were in there every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday night without fail. The only reason we didn't go on a Thursday is because it was student night and they were all geeks. So that was our nights. So we knew a lot of the regular punters that were there. But that night we went in on Christmas Eve. One of my pals, one of the guys she went to school with was there, and he was with a crowd of guys, and Ian was with him. So we were kind of blethering, and at midnight we obviously gave each other a kiss and a cuddle and happy Christmas, blah blah. And the kiss with Ian lasted a bit longer than most. After about 15-20 minutes we were talking, and he said, are you a nurse? And me being me, my sense of humour, I thought, how do I smell of crap? Because I had been working the night before, I had been working Christmas Eve up till 10 o'clock. But I'd had a shower and that, it wasn't that was just me being funny. And Ian was like, no, yeah, you've got caring eyes. That was me. Chocolate pudding on the floor, melted. And we were basically together constantly after that. I moved in really quickly. New Year's night, we moved in together. Although it was legally still me living at my mum's, but I never ever stayed there. We moved into our own flat because the flat we were in, the house we were in, was his mum's house, and his mum had just passed away. She passed away 9 days before we met, 16th of December. So I am absolutely certain that Margaret had some sort of pull on how we got together, because it was just, there's no way he could have known what I'd done for a living. And even though we had kind of mutual company, there was never a conversation between Tracy and this other guy to kind of ask what I'd done, or it just hadn't even come up. So I'm positive that his mum made sure that our boy was settled and happy. And as I said, we moved in together into our own home, and the following year I fell pregnant with Jordan. Pregnancy was fine, not any major issues. And the 16th of December, I got started, which I was praying in my mind. I didn't want him to be born on Ian's mum's anniversary. I didn't want his birthday having any sadness around it. So I kept praying that he would hold off till after midnight. So I was given the gel, and thank God he waited. Back at midnight I started getting really strong contractions, but the consultant I was under wanted me monitored. They liked an hour on the monitor to prove that I was really in labour and blah blah. But Jordan was just no having it. He kept kicking the monitor off, and eventually the junior consultant came up and checked, and he said that the reading he was getting he wasn't happy with. He would like me to go down to the labour suite, so they took me down, and he tried to fit a monitor on his head, but where he was in the birth canal, he was too far up to reach, but not far enough up that they could monitor him on the belly band thing. And also by that point my waters had broke and there was meconium through it, which is basically his bowel movements had moved in my stomach. So with all that, the consultant, he said, listen, I would prefer to take you through and get him out as soon as possible. So by this point it was must have been about 3:30, 4:45. So they phoned Ian and my mum and they made their way down. But while we were waiting, they took me through the theatre and got me all prepped, and basically they were standing with a scalpel while Ian was arriving. They were literally waiting, and as soon as Ian came in, they just got on with it. And when he was born, he was resuscitated just because he had digested some of the meconium. So they had resuscitated him and brought him straight over. But because I had had an epidural and I was awake through the section, I couldn't feel my hand where they had gave me the injection. Although it's meant to be from like the chest down, I had no power in my arms. So basically they had a pillow on top of it, and Ian kind of supported my arm and they let me hold him. But other than that, it was fine. I recovered so quickly from it, and we were home on the 22nd of December. And we had a lovely Christmas and New Year, and everything was perfect. The February, I started getting really bad pains in my chest area, over my shoulder, down my back, and I was admitted to hospital, and they found out that I had gallstones. So for the next 4 or 5 months I was in and out of hospital getting morphine injections, anti-sickness injections, you name it. And being a new mum, being a first time new mum and having this illness, my mental health just crushed. I felt I was a failure, and so I spoke to my GP. Didn't speak to anyone else. Ian knew, but no one else did. And they put me on Lustral, but they diagnosed me as postnatal depression. So I took them religiously, and if I'm honest, they didn't work. Going out, I wore a mask. MD asked, I'm fine, great, baby's beautiful, and everything was rosy, but inside I was dying. I was just going through the motions of life rather than actually living life. And that's what I done. The August of that year, I had had my gallbladder removed, and I was admitted to hospital with what they think could have been pleurisy or a blood clot in the lung due to the surgery. My mum takes blood clots, so it could have been that, they just weren't sure. I was admitted and put on an an antibiotic for the pleurisy, but I was also put on a heparin drip in case it was a blood clot, because it was a Saturday and I couldn't get any tests done until the Monday. In fact, my lie, the Monday was a holiday, it was a Tuesday before I could get any tests done. So while I was in casualty getting seen to, my mum came in and explained that there was police everywhere and that there was a young girl's body found at the bottom of the road. And across the road from the hospital was a cricket ground, and at the back of the cricket ground there was like a wooded area with like a wee stream, and that was where they found the body really. And I was saying to my mum, oh my goodness, that's where we used to hang about, because one of my friends stayed right across the road for it. And she said, alright, she says, no, it's a 15-year-old that they've found. And I went, God love her, a poor family. And so that was okay. Got up to the ward, slept. The next morning the auxiliaries came in, and it Paisley, obviously that's big news anywhere, so the auxiliaries are all in blathering away, and oh, she was a 15-year-old girl. And I thought, that poor family. And then at lunchtime the nurse came in and said, you have to phone your mum. So I lifted my purse and I said, can you bring me through the phone, because I was on bed rest. And she said, no, just use the staff phone, come out and use the nurse's station one. I said, right, okay. So I goes out and phoned mum, and the conversation basically said that the young girl wasn't 15, it was my friend that lived next to it. She'd been out to a club, walked home, and was literally 2 minutes from her front door, and this animal, in fact he's not an animal, he's a monster, attacked her. Because she was obviously fighting so much, he strangled her and raped her. Once he had done that and she wasn't coming to, he realised that he had actually killed her when he strangled her. I think he thought he had only made her unconscious, but he hadn't, he'd killed her. And because she died on him, he beat her unrecognisable. And the reason they thought it was a 15-year-old girl is because she was so slender and so petite. Laura was only 5'2", and she was about a size 6, so she was lucky she was tiny. But back then, CCTV etc. was very minimal, and it was very hard to find who done it. So they basically followed a trail and they found her items, her handbag and her purse were found on a path that basically leaded to the area I lived in at that point. So I was afraid. The depression was still obviously there, and knowing that there was someone who could do that in the area I lived in freaked me out. So I stopped going out myself at night, and I then, when I was going out through the day, I was only going via taxi, so that I knew nobody could really touch me. As winter came in, rather than just going out at 7 o'clock at night when it was light, I stopped going out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And to be honest with you, by the time spring came round, I had just set myself into that path and I just stopped altogether. The only place I really went to was the doctor's via taxi and my mum's via taxi. Shopping and things, I went with Ian, so I didn't feel so vulnerable, but it had a big impact on my life. They got him, but it was a good few months. It was October after she passed that we found who he was, and it was literally just pure luck. They done a DNA sweep of a mile's radius from where she was killed, and they swabbed one of his brothers, and they knew with the DNA that the link was somewhere in that household. They knew it was someone close to him. So they staked out the house really, and they found him. The mother had covered him well. She had burnt all his clothes that he wore that night, gave him money to go away for a few months, and they eventually waited and he came back and they caught him. So he went down for a sentence. He got 16 years, which he appealed and got 14 years. And to my knowledge, he's not out yet. And this is 16 years past in August there. So it's what he deserved, really. The next kind of big thing that happened after that was my aunt took ill and she was admitted to the hospice in December 2003. Now, my dad's family's huge. He has 9 sisters and, sorry, he had 9 sisters and he had 6 brothers. There was 15 of them in total. And within the family there was a few smaller groups, like, they were really friendly. So my aunt that was ill wasn't really one of my closest aunts, but she was still my aunt. So I had visited her in the hospice and blathered away with her, and my cousins, or 2 daughters, blathering away. It's fine. But I just wasn't coping at that point at all. But again, I kept wearing my mask, and when I was out and about, even over at my parents', the mask was on and I'm fine, everything's cool, nothing to report. But I was really struggling. Kate passed away on the 23rd of December. Her funeral was on the 28th, but with Catholic funerals they go into the church the night before. So on the night before I had said to Ian, I want to do this myself. So Ian and Jordan went to Ian's sister's, which was about 10 minutes from the church. I said, right, I'll come up and meet you once I'm done. So went to the church and my mum was like, oh, are you sitting beside us? And I went, no, I'm not feeling, I just want to sit at the back away on my own. I just can't manage today. And she went, alright, okay, just stay there when you're finished though, and because Dad's want to speak to you. And I went, right, okay. But I slipped out the church a few minutes before the end. I just couldn't cope with anyone being near me. And I knew the path that my sister and my dad would drive home. So I took the back roads really. And the only time I came onto the main road was when I was going into Ian's sister's street. And as I was turning to go into her street, my sister stopped me and she's like, where did you go to? And do you want a lift? I says, no, I'm just going into Ian's sister's. Alright, okay, well I'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, okay. Went into Ian's sister's, the usual niceties, how are you, sorry to hear about your aunt, blah blah blah. We were sitting having a coffee and the door went. So my nephew answered the door and he came in and says, Auntie Karen, it's your dad, you've to go out and speak to him at the car. And I went, right, okay. So I guess out, sits in the back of the car, and I don't know why, honestly, I can't even remember the proper conversation, but they were going on and on and on, and what's wrong with you just now, this is time that family should pull together, and the last thing I actually remember my mum saying was, you're so selfish, this is your dad, needs your support. And I just lost it. Completely, utterly lost it. Bawling my eyes out, screaming and shouting. My mum tried to come into the back to comfort me, and I basically threw her back out the car. Don't touch me, leave me alone, don't come near me. And my dad just didn't know what to do. He ran to the house, tapped the door, I need Ian. Ian came out, he came in the back of the car, spoke to me, calmed me down, and this time my mum and dad are outside the car, scratching their head like, what just happened? And so Ian comes out the car, explains to them that I've been struggling for a wee while, and I've just been pretending that everything was alright because I didn't want him to worry. So they come back in the car and give it the we're really sorry and why didn't you tell us and the usual. So I'm like, just leave me alone, I'm fine. Next day I got through the funeral. I don't even remember. If I'm honest, for the next few weeks I went in autopilot. Because it was obviously the new year and that, I couldn't get to the doctors till the beginning of January. When I did go, my GP basically said I'd had a mental breakdown. My brain just couldn't take any more and had just closed its doors. They put me on another medication, and if I'm honest, I can't remember what one it is. Because over the years I've tried so many medication you wouldn't believe. But I took it, and if I'm honest, it didn't make much difference. I just plodded on regardless. August 2005, me and Ian and Jordan went away on holiday, and we had a great time. Got home and I just felt absolutely knackered, and I just thought I had done too much on the holiday. It was a haven site, so I had been out every single night, which when you're agoraphobic is unreal. And at that point I wasn't on medication. As I said, up until November 2011, I wasn't on any medication long term. I would take them for maybe 6 months and then I'd say that's enough, which is wrong, and I would advise anybody that's got depression, stick with your medication, but I didn't. So I came home feeling really lethargic, really tired, and just couldn't get myself together. Felt really seedy and just off. Didn't really think anything of it. And then around the December time, through all this we also found out my sister-in-law was expecting. She was due June the 5th. So around all that time I hadn't thought anything else. And then in December I thought, you know what, I wonder if I'm expecting. But being with mental health problems, everything was going through my head, and I'm thinking it's cruel to bring a baby into this situation. I don't go out. The baby wouldn't be getting walks and fresh air, and we're 3 stories up, we don't have a garden. How would I cope? Because Ian was working, Jordan was at school. Jordan was 7 then, so I was thinking, how's this going to work? Is he going to feel pushed out? So I took a few days thinking things through. New Year's night, New Year's Eve, we spent with my brother and my sister-in-law in their new home, with my parents, her parents, my sibling, and we just brought the bells in, brought in the new year together. And I had a very, very weak Jack Daniels and Coke, but I was growing at it. And folk, normally I would drink that no problem, but folk are looking at me and they're going, are you alright? And I'm like, I've just got a cold or something coming on, I just don't feel right. Alright, okay. And they accepted that, was fine. Even Ian accepted it because I hadn't spoken to him yet. The 3rd of January I sat Ian down and I said, you know what, I think I could be. But being overweight, you couldn't tell that your body's changing that much. So he went up to the chemist and got a test, which was positive. I explained to him where my head was, saying I wasn't sure if I could go through with the pregnancy because I couldn't date when it had happened, due to the fact being I had polycystic ovary syndrome. My last cycle had been April the year before, so it could have been any time. I wasn't sure. So saw my GP and he said, well, I'll book you in for a registration scan to date the birth, blah blah, okay. So the 27th of January I went up to the maternity to get a date and scan. Because of the age gap between the kids, I wanted Jordan to be as involved as possible, so we brought him with us. Went in and she took all the measurements and dotted all the I's, and she went, you're due on the 27th of May. And I'm like, what? She says, you're due on the 27th of May. And I thought, you kidding me? That's only 5 months away. So I was just kind of bemused, and then the brain kicked in and I thought, I'm by the 24 weeks mark. Now, I don't know if I could have done that anyway. I really don't. I don't believe in it. But at that time, my brain was thinking, is this a life to bring a baby into? And I'm being honest about it. I don't want MD to think that it was all sweetness and roses, because honestly my brain was just and that's why I do tell people that, because it is fact. So as soon as she had said that and I realised I was by that stage, that was decision made. We were having a baby. I couldn't have gave a baby up. I couldn't have just handed that baby over to anyone. I just couldn't. I knew if I gave birth to that baby, it was ours. So while we were there, she said, do you want to know what sex the baby is? And I looked at Ian and I said, what do you think? And he went, don't know. And I went, aye, okay. So she started moving the Doppler over my tummy and I said, it's a boy. And she went, how do you know that? And I said, because I can see everything. And she laughed and she went, yeah, it is a boy. We left that maternity, went straight down to the baby shop, and Jordan picked his pram and we ordered everything we needed and paid the deposit on it there and then. We walked across the road to the paint shop, picked paint and wallpaper and went up the road, and I started decorating the nursery because we had had a spare room anyway. And that was it. And after Braden was born, I had a really, really tough delivery. It was a planned section because of the complications I'd had with Jordan. They decided to take me to theatre on the 10th of May. The actual delivery was fine, but the following morning staples had fell out my wound. The Friday morning another staple had fell out, so there was like 3 staples missing in like a row, which left a gaping wound. I was discharged and told that the midwives would come out on the Sunday and take out the rest of my staples. The midwife came out on the Saturday, checked the wound, blah blah blah, checked the baby, that's fine. Sunday she came out and I said, you have to take them. She went, I'm not taking those staples out. She said that wound looks too vulnerable. If I take them out, the whole thing could erupt on me and I've got nothing here to do anything with it. She said I would advise you to go up to the labour suite and get one of the consultants to have a look at it and decide what they want to do. Let them take it out up there where there's staff and equipment to help if things need to be done. So off we go up to the hospital and they agreed, but what the consultant said was she wanted me booked in overnight and booked in for theatre the next morning, just in case anything went wrong. There'd be a theatre free for me. So that was okay. They took the staples out the next morning and luckily it held, but I did have a gaping wound. that I needed dressed, packed from the May right through to the October. That was when my community nurses stopped coming in. It was a long road, but it's fine, it worked. Jordan started going off track slightly, and we decided that it wasn't the right area for Jordan to be brought up in. It was getting really rough. So we moved to Beath, which is, it's a town but it's more of a village. There's not a lot up here compared to Paisley, which is mobbed. Up here it's quite rural. And also the fact being is we had a garden and a back garden of our own, which meant I could get Jaden out the house because he was toddling at this point. And it was fine. Jaden was doing great. Jordan, we only postponed what path he was going on in Paisley. We moved to Bees and it just took a wee bit longer for him to get where he is, and he did give us a lot of problems. And many of you will know of the struggles we had with him. And when he turned 16, we actually asked him to leave the house. Not because we didn't want to support him, but there was things happening that we needed to have a secure, stable home for Jaden, because Jaden was then 7, coming up for 8, and we felt he needed that stability, because Jordan had had a stable, quiet home, and we felt it was only fair Jaden had that too. So Jordan moved into a hostel, and we saw him. He stayed with us one night a week. We would go down and collect him on a Friday. He would stay over the Friday or the Saturday, and we would take him home the following day, late on at night, so he would have basically a full 2 days to spend with his friends in Beath. And it wasn't long before he actually got a flat in Beath. To be honest, it wasn't the best plan, because a lot of them were just using his house as a drinking den. And being 16, having 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds chatting your door, "Oh, you alright mate, blah blah blah, with a carry out," you're not going to say no. He was intimidated. He'll lie and say that he's not afraid of anybody, but we know better. But luckily it's took him near enough 9 months, but he's starting to realise how much a responsibility having the house is, and he is starting to respect his own home a bit better and stop letting folk in. I saw my GP in October 2011, and I said, I'm just not coping. My agoraphobia is getting worse. I couldn't even get out the front garden in my own home. I didn't feel secure in my own back garden, which was secluded. Ian had put good fencing around, there was plenty of foliage, but I just felt overlooked and I didn't feel secure. So she said that she wasn't trained enough to deal with that, and she asked if I could be referred on to the mental health team. So I said yes. So the psychiatrist in November 2011, and he put me on, can't even remember, I think it might have been Sertraline. Honestly, I've been on so many medication, I can't even remember what's what. So I took them religiously for about 6 months, and anytime I went back it was just stick with it, up the dose, stick with it, up the dose. And after 6 months they said, well, we'll try you on amitriptyline. says, right, okay. Took them religiously. After about 6 months, I said, I don't really think they're working, and he's like, well, I mean, you painted yourself into this corner, and I said, well, I know that's why I'm here. I don't know how to get out of this corner. That's why I'm wanting help. But the relationship we had just wasn't working. And he said at that appointment, he said, listen, I don't know what else I can do. If you need me, lift the phone and make an appointment. But basically that was it. So I saw my own GP again, and I said, can I be referred to another psychiatrist? I just don't get along with him. And she said no, that area, he was the only one that was available. And I went, right, okay. She said, the only other option you have is to go private. Being working class, we don't have the money for private psychiatric help. So I stuck with it. A few days later, the phone rang. I was up lying in my bed, which I did regularly. And Jordan was downstairs. And then he came up and said, Mum, that was the psychiatrist on the phone, Dr. Hart. I went, alright, what does he want? No, he was just asking how your medication was working, and how you had been, was there any issues? And that was me, sprung out of bed, absolutely foaming at the mouth, because Jordan, we had decided that Jordan had enough going on in his head without hearing my struggles. We tried to shield him from a lot of it. He knew I was ill, but he never knew the extent of anything. I then decided I wasn't going back to see him. The following year, I took a real dip, and my mum said, listen, you really need to go back and get help, because they had noticed the change in my mood, which is very, very unusual, because I did wear a mask when I saw them, but obviously the mask had slipped. I explained that I didn't want to go back and see him, and she said, well, I'll come with you. I went, right, okay. So she came along and spoke to him, told him what he'd done, and he apologised very, very sincerely, I'll be honest. And he said, I honestly thought I was speaking to Ian. And at that, my mum shot in, and she's like, it doesn't matter who you were speaking to, you should never have divulged anything about Cam's care. It should have been a case of, is Cam available? No. Well, can you ask Cam to phone back on that number? It should never have been even discussed over the phone. So he agreed, and we got speaking, told him that I wasn't coping very well, and he had said, well, you basically tried just about every antidepressant that's suitable for you. And my mum had said, can we try her on venlafaxine? My other daughter's on it, and it seems to work with her. Could Cam try it as well? And I said, yeah, that's fine. So he wrote out the script. And I'll be honest, it doesn't make me feel cured, but I'm on a steady level now. Initially I was on 75 milligrams, then it was up to 150 milligrams, and I'm now on 225 milligrams a day. The last time I seen the psychiatrist was about a year and a half ago, maybe. I don't see the point in going back and seeing him, because I don't have any faith in him. And I manage as best I can. If I feel myself getting lower, I know coping mechanisms that help. Going to Ireland is a massive plus. I need to get there. That's like my R&R. I just managed to get my head together over there. If I can't go over there, there is a area about 15 minutes drive from here that's on the coast, and I'll say, Ian, can we just go and pick up a bag of chips and eat them over the water? No problem. And that helps calm. I do meditation, guided sleep meditation at bedtime if I'm feeling stressed. That helps. There's just small things that I do now that help. I have got another dosage that I can be up to, but the only problem is that would be my last up, so we're trying to hold that off until it's an absolute must. For instance, if there's a bereavement in the family, or me and Ian split up, something major that's going to affect my mental health, that's what that dosage is there for, as a backup. I have got other medication to help me sleep. I'm on Phenergan. I can't remember if it's 10 or 20 milligrams at bedtime. It's just enough to help me fall over. I also get Cocodamol 3500 for my pain levels. I only usually take it at bedtime, or if I'm feeling extremely sore, I'll take it, but I don't want to rely on it. I would rather feel a bit achy than take them regularly and have them not make any effect on me after a while and become immune to them. I also take naproxen 50 milligrams. I take that at bedtime as well, and if needed I take it in the morning getting up. And again, I try not to take it regularly because I want it to work when I need it. And that is basically what my medication is. I craft to keep my head in a stable position. If I've got a day where I'm feeling really, really bleak and I want to just hibernate, I will make sure that I do something that day. Even if it's just making an ATC, that day's not been wasted. I can say, well, I achieved something that day. And that's how I managed to get by. And then know, do you know what? You didn't want me talking to depression. You didn't want me to do anything today. And I proved you wrong. I've done something. That's just how I cope. But I had watched a video, I had seen on Facebook a journal page from Sarah Crankshaw. That's terrible, brains just went mental. But the Cranky Crafter, and it was basically an emotion journal, and it just absolutely resonated with me. I knew that place that she had been to write that and draw that, and I thought that would be great. I have in the past wrote diaries, but I feel I'm very vulnerable with them. Being in a house with 3 boys, they're not interested, but Jordan being Jordan and being the way he is, I don't ever want him to open a diary and read how I was feeling and feel emotional about it. I don't want him to understand anything that's going on in my head to make his life harder. So I don't write it down in black and white anymore, because I don't want anybody else to feel responsible or guilty for my mental health. I've always said in the past to Jordan, even at his worst, when he really was pushing me to dementia, I would say to him, you're not the reason I'm ill, but you're not helping it. I always told him that you're not the problem, but you're not helping it. So seeing Sarah's journal page, and she did do a video about it, I have decided that come January, that's what I'm going to do, because I feel as if putting it down in art, I will know where I was that day without it being in black and white, and it shouldn't make me feel too vulnerable because it's my art. Nobody else will bother with it, I don't think, but it just will help me to get that emotion out without feeling I had burdened it on anyone. So that's what I'm going to do. We go over to Ireland on the 19th of December and we come home on the 28th of December. But when we come home, we pass a craft shop that I stop into in Larne, and I'm going to pop in there and get an art journal. I have everything else for it. I've got gelatos, I've got paint, I've got pro markers, I've got Derwent ink pens, I've got Derwent watercolour, I've got watercolour paints, I've got acrylic paints, you name it, I've got it all. So it's just the journal I need, so I'm going to go out and get that. And I think that's about it. This has been a really long video and I apologise for that, but I feel it's important for folk to understand where I've came from, and hopefully there's been something there that will give you hope that you can get through it. And as I said, I don't think there's a cure for depression. I think you can get good spells, but I think, if I'm honest, there's always something going to be there to trigger it and come back again. As I said, I'm not cured, but I'm treating it. I do get good days and bad days, but that's normal. Everyone gets that, even if they don't have depression. But with depression, your bad days just are bad. But as I said, I try and always keep something to channel on, and my crafting does that. So I hope this has helped. If you have any questions whatsoever, leave them in the comments, private message me, email me, and I will respond. I respond to every comment on my videos, always. Might take me a week or so, but I do always respond. If you're looking for an urgent answer, private message me, I will reply. Add me on Facebook, or email me at carolmcclure@gmail.com and I will respond, no problem. And if there's anything else that you want to know more details about, feel free and I will do another vlog to highlight that issue, okay? So thanks for watching, and I hope that it helps somebody. Take care for now, and thanks for subscribing. Bye.